Hello, I'm Robert Barr. I'd like to reminisce a little bit about my trip to Uganda. In November of 2021, I was able to travel to Uganda to encourage the churches and pastors there, to help them minister to their people and reach those that do not know Christ. It was a trip I will long remember because it was the first time I've ever been overseas. I don't know if I'll ever get another opportunity. I feel it'd be helpful for all Christians to visit a mission field at least once, if possible, and see the work there. The trip would not have been possible without the help of friends at Church Planners International, who work in Uganda and several other countries. They were able to help me plan my trip and organize what I needed for the trip. They're also able to help me secure financial help for the trip. I've worked in the inner city in the US, but I was not prepared for the poverty I saw. We complain about potholes, but roads here are nothing compared to what they are there. I grew up in Michigan, where roads deteriorate very quickly when you get outside of major cities. I expected that. Many major cities have big problems with potholes, but I did not expect to find that the Bishop's Land Rover bottomed out on many of the roads in the national capital, as well as in the country. There are some really good roads and a few new expressways, but generally roads are pretty bad. So it's difficult to travel from one area to another. In addition, there are very few toilets, and many places, even in the cities, have a hole in the floor. The bigger churches had an enclosure with a hole, but smaller rural churches might have only an outhouse or some brush for men and a brush screen for women. Most of the churches I saw did not have running water, though some larger churches in Kampala collected rainwater. Some churches were brick, but many churches were merely pole structures covered with corrugated iron or brush. Many of the people have simple brush or brick homes. The land is mostly clay, and it seems that everywhere you go, there are people making bricks. So there's a lot of brick structures. People had very little of this world's goods, yet they worshiped with enthusiasm. They loved the Lord and weren't afraid to show it. Many traveled long distances on foot to attend church meetings. They are very eager to learn more about Christ and to tell their neighbors about Christ. The bishop that helped me while I was in Uganda had started out as a pastor and had been so successful he began to start new churches. At the time I was there, he'd started 25 churches and was training several young men to start new churches. Uganda is a ripe mission field, as is many of the rural, underdeveloped countries. Many churches are begging for Bibles because they have very few Bibles. Most pastors struggle with what the churches can afford to pay them because most parishioners are very poor. Many pastors and their church members have suffered greatly during the COVID crisis because many businesses had to close and many churches were not able to meet for a while. Many pastors have had very little training because they lack teachers to train them, and many pastors cannot afford what training is available. There's a great need for retired pastors who are Bible trained to teach, and the cost of living there is much cheaper than here. However, conditions in many areas are primitive. I would have liked to have stayed longer in Uganda, but had to return to my work here. Church Planners International has been sending teams periodically to provide training for pastors and have been helping build churches and schools there. They can use any help that Americans can provide. Financial help can be sent to help the work in Uganda through church planners. Similar conditions exist in many of the underdeveloped countries that I work with. Many pastors who contact me have no computers or laptops and have to rely on smartphones to communicate. I'm able to teach classes by way of Zoom and through Facebook and LinkedIn video messaging. Pastors often cannot receive teaching materials or print them off because of a lack of computers and printers. Many are also in great need of Bibles in their language. Thank you.